now. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm the Gray Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective energy update for today, Monday, March 4th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card we are starting our day off with today is 10 of Swords in its reversal. We love to see this energy today. I told you, we're getting a lot of that renewal energy. What are we talking about? That butterfly flapping its wings to kind of come out of the cocoon, if you will. That ability of going through difficulty, going through those breakthroughs. I'm even going to say, this is heavy energy. When we see this 10 of Swords energy, it can feel like that point of being put under some level or degree of pressure to a certain extent, but all for the sake of coming into a better sense of oneself. So we keep seeing a lot of this breakthrough energy that's potentially coming through right now. And that is either being articulated right now, as we saw. Energy in separation, being able to find the pathwork that is allowing for a new cycle to begin. But the nice thing about these cycles is it feels like it's not pulling each other against the opposite parts of the street. It's coming into alignment, right? That point of recognizing what feels like it is now ready to be in alignment. For the energy that's not necessarily seeing this right now, the ability to recognize and see that there isn't an alignment there is almost reaffirming someone's commitment to move forward from this point, because that point of separation and not seeing the change necessary, again, that is that act of healing that returns back to the self that comes in the form of personal transformation, being ready to come into that new sense of self. Masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union right now. This is the breakthrough energy that's making you feel like something has effectively changed. Because what do we keep seeing that's coming through? The amplification for a lot of the energy coming into divine union right now is the simplicity and easement of that transformational process. It's a fact of it doesn't necessarily even feel like you're surrendering something to come into union right now. It just feels like that perfect sense of alignment. And it's not necessarily coming again. We do see that there are a little bit of that fastidiousness that's coming through right now. In terms of the feminine wanting to effectively slow things down, masculine wanting to move things forward at a faster clip, but even recognizing and utilizing your powers of explanation and observation to let that be a breakthrough moment is helping to recognize the power of being in divine union, because that's that moment of taking the counterpart energy and being able to facilitate in a way that it's advantageous for the energy in the union itself. Masculine and feminine in the heart of the divine union right now, this is more of that energetic spring cleaning that we keep seeing. And I have to stress, this is going to feel a little bit heavier right now for the energy in the heart of the divine union frequency, because this is digging into the past. This is unearthing a lot of things that you may have felt like were latent for quite some time right now, because this level and degree of coming into the divine union, this ability to see oneself clearly, acting as a clear mirror for the other, it's almost like starting to have that moment that becomes a little bit more intense, because not only are you coming into alignment with each other and you're facilitating and seeing the shifts that have occurred in terms of becoming your best version of self, but now we're seeing that some of that tricky work that's occurring right now, being able to show someone what could be almost energetically a blind spot that they may not necessarily see, that you feel may be holding or limiting them back from being able to be not what you think their best potential should be, but what you know their idea and aspiration of their own personal aspiration is. It's heavy work. It feels very triggering to a certain extent, but it's also that sense and that gift of giving someone to say to someone, like, again, I'm not saying this because I want you to become this. I'm saying this because I know you want to become this, and I want to do everything I can to support you, even if it's not easy. Second call in our card, in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here our 3 of Wands. I told you, this is the blind spot. This is the blind spot that we're almost seeing that is causing, and I told you, for the energy right now in the divine union frequency, this is more of that excavation process to a certain extent. It's not going to feel so much like, oh, like happy with celebration energy in the divine union, because this is showing someone something about themselves that they might not necessarily have seen. The energy in the divine union frequency has come into alignment so much that you're almost acting as such a clear mirror for the other that you can see the limitation point through which you're trying to amplify and show someone something about themselves, not, and I have to keep saying this, not because you desire them to change for your own personal vested interest, but because you are holding their aspiration, you're holding their template of themselves in yourself to such an extent that you're able to show them some things to help facilitate that process that they may not necessarily be able to recognize and see within them their own self. So this process right now, this is harder work for the energy in the divine union, because this is digging into, like the earth is pulling out some, like, long-term patterns, some ways of being that may even be so intrinsic to someone that they might not necessarily recognize and see that they're there. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union frequency, this is that breakthrough energy. The breakthrough energy that feels like the breakthrough in terms of how easy something is. It doesn't even feel like a breakthrough. And that's that moment that almost feels like the amplification of coming into a point of personal transformation. Because we almost see that for the energy that's experiencing this right now, that recognition point of someone saying, like, you make this easy, but then almost saying to the other, no, I know you don't make this easy. It's because you've done that hard work on yourself, is again the clear mirror suddenly saying, wait, I've also done that hard work as well. See that beautiful transformation energy that happens when we facilitate acting as clear mirrors for each other? Masculine and feminine energy right now that is either in separation. This is that transformational pathwork moment that is both best articulated and amplified in the difference in looking at patterns and situations right now and seeing that something has actually tangibly, functionally changed in relationality to another. That would be that restoration energy that we see here. And that's coming through in someone saying, I could not see then what I can see now. Coming into the point of observation in recognizing that breakthrough in terms of someone articulating what they couldn't observe in the past that is now facilitating a clear path moving forward. Right? The ability to move forward is facilitated on someone saying that they could not see something in the past. Whereas for masculine and feminine, they're coming in, they're in separation. And that was that amplification point, not seeing something having an ability to change, seeing something that seems to a certain extent like it's almost a point of observing. This could even be feeling right now for some of the energy in separation, someone who doesn't feel there is anything on their part to change. That's that moment that immediately allows for breakthrough and release, because that's that moment of saying, if I am not necessarily in connection with someone in a way that works positively, and I'm trying to tell them that they need to facilitate change and they're returning back, but they're not observably able to like even recognize what I'm telling them, this is that moment that almost allows for that process of relief, because it's that observation and saying, like, in a way, we're on very different paths. We're on very different paths, even to the extent of someone not necessarily understanding what I'm trying to say to them, is almost that moment that you're not holding it necessarily against someone. You're just saying we are on very different paths. And like, we don't even recognize the journey that the other is taking or what we're effectively asking for someone. Someone's not able to find us where we're asking them to meet us because they're not on the same path. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here our Chariot. This is that empowerment moment, because the minute that you observe and say something isn't working, not because of a lack of effort, not because of a lack of care, but just observing that someone is not on the same path as you, immediately, I told you, facilitates a healing moment, because that's that moment of saying, this doesn't mean that this is a moment of personal failure to a certain extent for the energy experiencing this. This is that observation and saying, imagine what I could do taking this energy and putting it in the directionality of someone who is on my path, someone who does understand this work, someone that is also on that same journey. So being able to recognize that to a certain extent right now, I told you, this is that deep healing that is potentially coming right now for any energy that is acknowledging that there may be that energetic connection to someone, but the energetic connection isn't enough to potentially sustain a partnership if you feel like you are on different paths. So that ability to identify and amplify that, not only is it creating a breakthrough moment in terms of personal empowerment, but it's also that sense of potentially feeling the hope and expectation that if you're not necessarily on the path with someone now, that doesn't mean that you might not be someday in the future. It doesn't mean that there may be a moment that your paths cross or that alignment comes towards. That is that moment of, again, just kind of accepting, coming into that state of acceptance that allows for you to continue forward, as it were. Masculine and feminine coming into a state of resolution or restoration at this point right now. The ability to find each other on this journey is being amplified by, again, someone observing and saying, I am on your path now. I want the same things you do. I can articulate what it is I aspire and desire, and I can tell you effectively why that wasn't necessary or available in the past. That personal accountability moment, if you will, that is facilitating productive breakthroughs right now for the energy that's coming into restoration, is being amplified and being able to articulate the difference in what you couldn't see or discuss in the past versus what you can. So for a lot of the energy right now, this is almost seeing and experiencing that tangible shift that I've been articulating on, that helps you feel the difference between someone saying something versus being able to actually show something. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is that modality that feels like that expression of effortlessness, almost feeling like you're just moving into it. And that's what's so funny about some of this energy right now that's coming into divine union. It almost feels like a surprise moment because you weren't necessarily expecting to find yourself on this path so quickly. But it's almost that sensation of someone who makes it so easy to be in partnership with that it almost like sneaks up on you, right? It's like, it's because you don't have to put the care and attention into facilitating it. And in its way, that in itself is where we're seeing that a lot of that breakthrough energy is occurring. And the minute that one feels that, is the minute that you can feel and heal from anything in the past that didn't provide that level or degree of context, that didn't create that safe or that easy space. That helps build the perception on why something didn't work in the past at the moment that something starts to work. So this is some of that deeper healing I told you is coming about right now for a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency. You're like, oh, I didn't even realize I had to recover from that. Now I do. Masculine and feminine that are in the divine union frequency. This energetic work, I told you, this is feeling like the harder energetic frequency here, because this is the energy that this isn't necessarily facilitating a breakthrough in relationality to the shape of the partnerships. You're already on the same path. This is creating that state or space of trying to make it easier for one another as you continue together forward on it. And how is that happening? By acting as a clear mirror for the other to show what someone may recognize or not be able to see within themselves. Going to say it again, not because of a desire to change someone to one's own devices, but knowing intrinsically what one aspires to be, holding that version of the counterpart energies, just like definition of self close to heart, to be able to help facilitate that greater level of growth energetically right now. It's difficult work. It's triggering work. It's triggering in any context to show someone something about themselves that they might not necessarily have observed or recognized. But for the energy that's doing this hard work, it is allowing for a lot of personal breakthroughs. In the moment, it's heavy, but it's breakthrough energy. Now, continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fourth card in our 5-card spread. We have here, what did I tell you? Look at these cards together. I have to express, and for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency right now, this is one of those moments that may feel like the amplification. I told you, the tough love that's coming into play around some of these circumstances or situations. Almost saying something to someone and saying, I'm saying this not in a point of criticism. I'm articulating this from a sense or a space of deep love. Having that point of observation, trying to act as functional, clear mirrors for another. How do we act as functional, clear mirrors for another? Do we put on them the fantasy or the illusion of who we hope someone to be? No, we hold within us the aspiration of what we know someone's highest version of self is. That's the thing. It's almost like these energies right now in the divine union are holding the template. They're holding the photograph. They're holding the picture of what they know the other energy aspires and desires to be, to say, I'm looking at this and I can see what you may want to change or adjust or adapt to bring you into a refined version of that best version of self. That's hard work. That's triggering work. That's potentially even showing something about something to someone that they may not necessarily be able or willing to see. But that ability of saying to someone, I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying this because the profound act of love almost compels me to show you something, even if it is difficult to hear. That is that energetic frequency we see that is allowing for a lot of this to come into that sense or space of compassion and protection and productivity. It's hard work, but it's vital work. Masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union right now. This is going to feel like a lot more of an ease sense because it's a breakthrough energy of feeling like someone who is trying to bring you into your best version of self instead of trying to pull you onto the path in terms of who they want you to be. The minute you are in a union energy where you have someone that's effectively aspiring and helping you become your best version of self instead of trying to turn you into what they aspire or desire you to be, that's the moment that you come into healing in terms of anything that may have created that space or place for you in the past. So for a lot of the energy right now, having that breakthrough moment, feeling that energetic connection, feeling that ability of seeing something and feeling the difference in that frequency is what is effectively allowing a lot of energy to say, I thought I was on a healing journey before. No, my healing has just begun. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is that rubber meets the road energy that we're seeing that is now allowing for that breakthrough moment. And we have to see here, I have to stress this, for a lot of the energy in separation right now, if there's something about someone coming back towards you and you're not seeing that they've been doing any of the path work, they haven't been working on any of that healing journey, this is that moment that almost feels like that like c'est la vie moment, because it's not that expression of saying a lack of care for someone. It's almost just saying they don't see it. They don't see what I've been trying to say to them. That might not necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with that. That's just showing in a way we're on very, very, very different paths, right? And the ability to look at someone and say, like, I can care about you and understand, identify that we are on different paths. I'm not going to try to change you. I'm not going to try to heal you. I just want you to kind of like that level or degree of saying, like, I want to see you be your best version of self, even if it's not necessarily with me, as it were. That's almost what we're seeing right now. A lot of the energy of in separation, coming into separation, that affirmation of the healing immediately coming back is, again, the hope or the trust cycle of saying, just because I don't see that path work is there, just because someone is not on the same path as me, doesn't mean that there might not be a time in the future that it is. But that sense of saying there's the aspiration and hope one can hold that something like that may occur without it allowing you to bar or stop your own progress forward. Because that's that moment of saying to oneself, the place I will find that ideal connection point, even with this person, lies that way. It lies in the future. It is me moving forward as opposed to potentially holding on to a past that isn't showing that ability of coming into a state of change. For the other part of the masculine and feminine energy, if this is a moment of restoration, this ability of identifying and feeling something here that is showing an ability to heal is effectively that merge moment. It's that moment of finding someone back on the path right now and seeing and feeling that there's been a shift. And that is also being expressed right now by why the energy almost being able to articulate and say, yeah, I understand what the blockage was. I understand what that limitation was. Potentially even energy saying, I understood why you had to let go of me when I was in that place or space, because that ability of identifying and being able to say, I see my own blockage. I see what you were trying to show me is what is now helping to facilitate a lot of the energy that's now being able to move back into restoration. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here, look, we've got this beautiful energy here of Ace of Swords, which is that moment, and I have to say, this is that expression of compassion, because this is that sense of effectively that articulation of love that moves into the space of place of identifying and saying effectively, I want what's best for you, as opposed to I want what's best for me. For the energy right now, even in separation, this is going to feel like a profound healing gesture, because this is that moment of feeling some point of separation and saying, I want what's best for both of us, even if it doesn't necessarily mean that we are together. That ability to identify and recognize that doesn't mean that you can't hold forth in maintaining some point of energetic or emotional connection with an energy. It is the breakthrough that we're seeing that a lot of the energy is experiencing and feeling right now that is validating their ability to move forward at this time, because it's almost that aspiration or the hope of something or someone coming back or in a way that feels like it will be positive as opposed to negative. So we see even now that sense of hope returning to situations and circumstances for a lot of the energy, even if that is a moment of not necessarily seeing it now, It's almost compelling the energy and separation forward, because it's almost that recognition point of saying, I know what it is that I'm seeking. I'm holding on to my manifestation goal of what a good union feels like. And I'm either going to find this person on that path in the future when they also recognize and understand it, or I'm going to find that ideal counterpart energy that's ready for that at this moment. Masculine and feminine energy, there may be some energy right now coming into recovery that's seen this point of breakthrough. And it's going to be most articulated by an energy that's returning back, that's able to amplify and articulate exactly what the hurdle was that was creating the limitations in the past. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. The energetic equivalent of feeling the ease, potentially even accidentally bumping into someone. I have to stress here, this is literally this is energy that may have even said, like, I wasn't expecting to find you here. I can't believe how easy this is. It almost just feels natural, is that sense of recognizing that that's the pathwork of finding someone who is not like, it's natural and easy because you found someone that's doing a lot of that healing work on the same path as you right now. So that sense of alignment and understanding not only is allowing for a lot of breakthrough of energy moving deep into the heart of the divine union frequency more quickly right now, it immediately triggers a healing moment in terms of understanding and identifying what wasn't bringing that sense of alignment in the past, right? That's the amplification of the lesson that immediately kind of like, hits on all sides in relationality to what's occurred even in the past experiences. Masculine and feminine energy right now in the divine union, you can see why this energy is a little bit more difficult, because the breakthrough isn't coming in a perpetual shift in relationality to the adjustment of the divine union. It has to do more about one's own sense of self. And this is why we see that this is more heavy or hard lifting, as it were, because this is potentially, as I said, showing someone something about themselves, not for the sake of someone's personal vested interest, but for the sense and for the sake of knowing what someone aspires and desires to be internally, holding that template for them and being able to do the hard work that might be necessary to help show someone what they can do, change, adjust, accommodate, to be able to facilitate that version of self more accurately. Next card's getting clarity between our 10 of Swords in combination with our 3 of Wands in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with the King of Pentacles. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency right now. One of the things that we're effectively seeing here that may feel like a little bit more of a struggle point for the energy in the divine union frequency has to do with that stability, that security of masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. What is happening right now? Masculine is becoming more grounded in the divine union energy. That sense, if it's going to be articulated more, and I think that this is the thing that we need to bring up here. Masculine coming into a point of confidence in the divine union frequency may feel like a little bit, and this is where we see that blind spot, that observation point starts to come back, because that sense of the masculine building the security and stability in the divine union frequency may be feeling to some of the feminine energy like a point of a little bit of inflexibility, right? And this is what I'm telling you right now that may feel like a little bit of this prickliness that's coming through right now for the energy in the divine union frequency, and the observation point effectively that you got to take like the bitter with the sweet, right? Having that moment of potentially looking towards masculine and appreciating the fact that there is that strength, there is that stability, there is that groundedness that we see that is amplifying with masculine energy in the divine union frequency right now. That may be coming through almost of a feminine energy, showing the masculine in some capacity that can almost be a little bit of a resistance point as it relates to having a little bit more of that adaptability energy. I have a feeling I know exactly the cards are going to come up for the feminine in a moment right now, because this is a lot of the argumentation that we've been seeing between these energies. Remember I told you masculine wants to rush forward the way that they want to rush forward right now, right? And the thing is, for the masculine, that's actually supposed to be feeling like more of that inner child energy. But for some of the feminine energy right now, there's a little bit of that, like that desire, that fortitude here that starts to either feel like the positive, but also the negative, because that's at a point of recognizing that just as that can create like a lot of that strength and security and stability, it may also feel like there's a little bit like a lack of flexibility in that. Masculine, You may be feeling this right now too. And especially again, if someone's showing you something about yourself right now in the energetic frequency, this could have to feel like you need to articulate and define potentially what you feel like your ideal and aspiration is, what someone may be misunderstanding, even in the heart of the divine union frequency, in terms of recognizing what feels like it is actually within your power to change versus what feels like it is integrally within you. Okay, because that is again showing some of that adjustment point in terms of seeing the positive and the negative around some of that strength. Masculine and feminine that are coming into the divine union frequency, this is the breakthrough moment of the feminine feeling like the masculine is creating that security and that stability. This is almost the feminine energy. Again, if this was a masculine that had doubts or fears and anxieties, and instead of rushing forward and following those doubts and fears, seeing a feminine pull back, instead led from an inquiry-based approach, feminine immediately providing clarity and context on what the masculine was seeing. This is feminine feeling the security and stability of a masculine that is confident and secure enough about themselves to ask a difficult question, as opposed to letting those doubts and fears and anxieties run them ragged or run them wild and lead them into separation. That ability to do so is almost why, again, if there's a feminine energy that feels like a masculine saying to the feminine, you make things easy, this is feminine saying, no, you make things easy, because this is feminine appreciating the amount and level of work it takes for a masculine to be secure enough about themselves to be able to lead with a difficult question, as opposed to assuming that they know what is going on without clarifying upon it. That ability to see this for the feminine right now is a lot of that breakthrough. Masculine, you may be seeing the same thing on the part of a feminine energy that is willing to be able to ask a difficult question, as opposed to moving into a state or space of assuming and allowing their own, like pulling into separation by making assumptions on how they see you moving that may feel oppositional, is also where we see that breakthrough is coming through. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This observation point, this recognition, and this is why we see that for a lot of the feminine energy right now, this is almost creating that space of saying, like, observing if this is leading to a further separation moment with some feminine energy. This is potentially looking towards a masculine right now. This could even be for a lot of the feminine. We saw that there may be a masculine that may continue to try to come towards you right now. But the problem is, it's not necessarily masculine that's showing the ability to adapt or to change, so much as it's showing for the feminine energy an inflexibility point in some of that masculine energy that may be articulated in a masculine that's trying to say there isn't something that they need to change, right? So we see that for a lot of the feminine energy, seeing that, and feminine energy being like, if I am telling someone that they need to change and they don't understand what I'm saying, and they're continuing forward in the same space or place that they're coming towards me right now, feeling secure in the fact, they're secure in the fact that I'm telling them that there's something here that isn't secure. This is feminine energy that's just accepting that as such. This is why we even see that there's almost this point I told you of almost trying to end conflict or argumentation with energy in this nature, because this is that moment of saying that there isn't an adaptability point. It's almost like feminine coming into a state of saying, like, they're showing I need them to change, and they're showing an inability to change, even to the point that they're not understanding what I'm asking them to change. So even recognizing this right now is a breakthrough moment for feminine, because this is feminine saying, like, we are just in very different places, like very different places. Masculine, same thing here. If this was a feminine that you came into separation with, because, and we even saw that difficult love, right? The feminine energy, moving them, some masculine energy away from them at this point, saying, I hope you can come back when you understand this. I hope that you can come back into that point of shifting. I'm just not seeing that here. Masculine, we see the same thing that's occurring right now, because as if this is a masculine that came into a better understanding of self, a stability in terms of one's own self by being authentic and true towards the feminine. If this is a masculine that is doing that hard work of pushing a feminine away, saying, you are looking too much towards me, like an adaptability point. I see you trying to contort and change too much to suit like what you have to accommodate within yourself to be able to be in alignment with me. This is a masculine energy, almost reaffirming again, the care and love that they may feel towards someone is sacrosanct, but not under those circumstances. Which is why it's almost that sense of a masculine feeling that gift of love, of loving someone energetically from afar, is immediately that moment of masculine coming into a deep maturation process, doing the right thing instead of the easy thing. Both energies in separation right now, if this is leading to reconciliation. And so again, what is feminine doing right now? Feminine energy in separation, if moving away from an energy in this way, is focusing on the manifestation goal of a masculine energy that's grounded enough to be able to be in alignment with them. Masculine is coming into alignment right now, doing the hard thing instead of the easy thing. I told you, these energies are coming closer and closer into union. Energy that's coming into reconciliation at this point right now is, again, masculine energy coming towards feminine to be able to articulate the blind spots that may have effectively led to anything that was coming into a failure point in the past, right? This is that moment that feels like restoration by not being able to repeat patterns, and a masculine that is able to tangibly show someone, almost like in a way that they're expressing it. They can see it. Someone can observably see and feel the shift that has occurred in an energy right now in terms of a masculine that's almost come into that maturation process. While for the feminine energy right now, the masculine energy in this modality, that security, that stability, if this is again a feminine energy that you're coming into reconciliation on, the difference, as we articulated, between an energy that feels like they need to shift and contort to be in relationship with you versus an energy that says, you surprised me with something I wasn't expecting, that is the masculine energy feeling that security moment, because that's the difference of, again, masculine taking a bit of a wait and see approach, but recognizing and understanding the difference between someone feeling like they need to change who they are internally versus someone saying, well, what you gave me wasn't ideal, and masculine saying, I recognize that, and coming into a maturation process at that moment. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Three of Wands and our Chariot. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Ace of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union right now. I told you the hardest energy right now for this has to do with some of the energy in the divine union frequency, because having this point of observation right now is effectively, I told you, this is giving me a little bit of that energetic feeling of tough love, if you will. Having to say something to someone that feels like it is difficult, but not necessarily doing that for the sake of one's own desire, but recognizing that sometimes we have to say and do things that are difficult because we know that that is the thing that is necessary to bring forth to someone to help them become their best version of self. So we see right now that, can you see this energetic heaviness that's potentially arising right now in some circumstances and situations of the divine union? That expression of saying to someone, I'm not saying something here to hurt you or energetically create a space or place of you feeling like you are deficient. I'm saying this to help you come into better alignment with your aspiration ideal of what do you want going forward. So this could be articulated in potentially what could be best amplified as difficult but productive conversations that lead to a lot of improvement. Masculine and feminine energy that are coming into divine union, this ability of feeling that you're in alignment with someone that makes those choices, that is willing to effectively do the hard thing instead of the easy thing, is potentially immediately giving you clarity on anything energetically in the past that was trying to do the easy thing instead of the hard thing. Like, that's what I mean about that moment of overwhelm, because it's like the minute that you move into that new modality, your ability to see forth back into what wasn't working is suddenly recognizing what actually needs to heal. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This point of observation, this recognition point, and this is why we see even now there may be something that feels like a giant emotional release process. This is heavy energy in separation if this is effectively occurring. Because again, I told you, a lot of this separation energy doesn't have to do with the limitation of love. It's not the love that we're seeing here that is the problem around some of these circumstances or situations. It's doing what one feels like you must do as opposed to what you feel like you may want to do. That is almost that energetic expression that's coming through around some of these circumstances or situations right now that almost comes through the hope. And again, if this is that energetic pushing someone away and saying, I'm doing this because I care about you, that ability to recognize that to a certain extent is almost that hope or aspiration of someone saying, like, I hope they understand someday. I hope that our paths cross so they recognize and see what these circumstances and situations were. So the ability to do that even now is almost like that point of like energetic compassion and resistance, saying like, I can't accept this in this modality because this isn't healthy. It's not serving us. It's not in our best interest. So that ability to do that is immediately the amplification that gets you on your path work, because you're doing the thing that, as we're saying, that expression of love that articulates and amplifies that sometimes doing the thing we know we need to do isn't necessarily the easy thing. But rest assured, we still do it. The energy right now that is coming into divine union, or coming back into the possibility of restoration here, is the energy that's finding themselves on that path. And it's not feeling like you're pulling each other on the path right now. You're finding yourself back on it. And it's being amplified by the energy saying, I recognize what wasn't working in the past, because I'm now in a space or place that I'm doing what does. Continuing, and there could potentially be, again, a lot of that energetic outpouring right now in relationality to the energy of like apology. And it may feel like very emotionally overwhelming and cathartic for the energy experiencing this right now, because this is almost like the energy that's like trying to trip over themselves to say, I couldn't see it back then. Now I can. You know, and like that expression of trying to act, like it's like immediate emotional overwhelm if you're either receiving that, someone telling you that they can identify what wasn't working, versus being able to give that to someone to allow a positive direction forward. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Chariot in combination with our Two of Cups. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now. A lot of energetic overwhelm right now, potentially, specifically in the realm of masculine energy. One thing to bear in mind right now, masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. A lot of this work right now feels like a lot of energetic overwhelm for some of the masculine energy that is doing it. Because I told you, this is a heart-opening exercise, right? What do we call it when you're doing the thing that's difficult instead of the thing that's easy? That's a heart-opening exercise. That's not closing your heart space. We call that, like, this isn't that moment of closing one's heart space up. That's coming into that point of recognizing just how hard your heart can work, just like what it's capable of doing. That energetic expression right now is almost coming into that modality of masculine doing, again, what is the energy of the masculine energy doing right now in the divine union frequency? They're almost in that modality right now of, again, amplifying and recognizing and keeping a lot of concentration on what feels like it builds that positive, productive partnership. There could be something about this right now that we need to take into accountability, because for some of the masculine energy right now, this may be moving into such a space or state of practicality that I need to articulate that some of the masculine energy may be trying to like energetically like close their own heart space to a certain extent, because this is that moment of, again, focusing on like what feels like it's best energetically, potentially at the cost of one's own sense of well-being. So this may be something that needs to be navigated right now for some of the masculine energy in the divine union frequency, because we don't want you in that modality that over amplifies this feeling that you need to like, you know, come into that space of emotional sacrifice for the sake of creating stability right now. That's almost what we're seeing here that is potentially happening, that needs to be articulated and amplified upon, because for some of the masculine energy right now, this could be feeling like a lot of this, like, this could be feeling like a little bit of disharmony for the energy in the divine union frequency. We're also seeing here that for some of the energy in the divine union frequency, this is almost having to feel to a certain extent that you need to like pick up a lot of the coursework for some of the masculine energy that may have led to some of the feminine energy being in the divine union frequency, because this is, again, having to almost create that sense of security and stability to help someone recognize, I keep seeing this come through, the difference between telling someone something about themselves that you know is following their own personal aspiration versus the ability to be able to say something that someone feels is pushing them into a place that doesn't feel like it's positive. Because what's effectively happening for some of the feminine energy that's going through this right now, this is that moment for feminine energy that may feel like having that clear mirror feels like it is challenging, because it's a moment that you experience some of that clear mirror that reminds you of past experiences with masculine wherein someone wasn't holding your best interest at the forefront. So we see even now, I told you this has a lot to do with some of that energetic unpacking, if you will, that is occurring for masculine and feminine energy. And this is why we almost see a lot of the masculine energy in the divine union frequency right now. I have to say this in a way that feels loving, may feel very frustrated about other masculine energy that was unhealed, that may have encountered the feminine prior to this point, because this is the masculine energy that almost feels like they have to do double the work, if you will, in building a strong connection with feminine to help on any of the spaces or places that may have created that anxiety point with feminine that is now creating what could sometimes be that feminine having that anxiety about that clear mirror being present. Feminine energy you may be feeling and experiencing right now. Again, the masculine energy, this may be feminine energy telling some of the masculine energy and divine union frequency right now that the masculine shouldn't feel like they need to energetically close off or not allow their emotional expression of something in order to create stability at this time. This can almost be the feminine energy, again, needing to work very carefully in relationality to path work right now, feminine, because we see here that this is a masculine energy that's feeling a lot of emotional overwhelm right now, and recognizing that the masculine, sometimes when they come into that emotional overwhelm, it's that they ground through, not because it's not that they're feeling emotionality, it's just that they don't express it in the same way. So being able to recognize this right now, feminine, may also be, again, that moment of acting like a clear mirror to masculine, where you may feel like there's a lot going on under the surface, and the masculine has an ability to channel that through places and spaces that they feel like that is more productive. So this is almost that moment I told you, that the nuance of how the energy processes energetic overwhelms. Masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union right now, I told you that breakthrough is potentially happening right now. It's easier to place, because if this is a feminine energy that's seeing a masculine that's showing that ability of recognizing, and I'll even point out, it's not the fact that the masculine doesn't come into a state or space of emotional overwhelm here. This is almost a masculine that can articulate that they're going through an emotional overwhelm, not subjecting someone to an emotional overwhelm, but articulating that one is having and emotional overwhelm. That ability in seeing this right now is effectively immediately building clarity right now for a lot of the feminine energy that may have had some moments of trauma in the past from masculine energy that hadn't necessarily been able to master that type of work. That is why we see here that expression that's almost coming through right now in relationality. If this is someone saying you make things so easy, this is feminine energy going, no, you make things so easy, because this is feminine energy feeling the value add of a masculine that is doing that work on the self, not just in the realm or the space of the practical, but also paying a lot of that attention to emotional upkeep, if you will, and trying to become a higher version of their own emotional self. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is effectively that energetic moment that is either allowing for a point of resolution, a point of restoration, and that's coming through a potentially of a masculine coming into an emotional overwhelm to feminine, being able to articulate and say, I recognize and I identify what was creating that blockage point. And feeling like that to a certain extent, a feminine energy that's almost seeing a masculine that is leading forth with, again, not just the emotional expression, not just subjecting the feminine to their emotionality, but articulating on what is bringing forth that emotional expression. That is the feminine energy that's seeing some sort of change here, because this is not a masculine that's just moving in reactivity to their emotions or allowing their emotions to overwhelm them. This is a masculine that's learning the ability to feel an emotion, pause, observe what they're feeling, and then express it. So being able to see that, even that right now, is some of that energetic expression that some of the feminine may be recognizing and saying, I can see that something in you has changed. Because that's the feminine energy literally saying, I can pinpoint and see energetically what has changed. Masculine and feminine energy coming into restoration right now. This is a restoration moment where, again, the masculine is seeing that this is a feminine that's coming from a state of openness and not from a point of feminine changing themselves. This is the masculine feeling that relief, because this is the feminine that's almost saying the masculine, affirming and saying, I am on the same path as you are. I want the same things as you do. You just need to be more open with me moving forward. And that's a masculine feeling the emotional energetic relief and saying, I can do that. While for the energy right now coming into separation, this is why we see that this is that energetic heaviness point. Because for feminine right now, if there's a moment of a masculine coming back towards you And it could feel very painful, because if this is a moment where the masculine is coming back towards you and it's not due to a lack of love or a lack of affection, but potentially a masculine that hasn't necessarily mastered the ability to articulate on what they're feeling as opposed to subjecting you to what they're feeling. This is almost that moment of feminine, like again, almost trying to put some emotional distance here to help facilitate and help an energy realize that the aspiration and desire isn't due to a lack of care or love. It's with the hope of coming into a point of balance. I told you that gift of love and almost saying, I need to move away from you right now because I can't foster a place where you can't become your best version of self. While for masculine right now, again, if there's a feminine energy that's too changeable, too adaptable, too willing to like contort themselves to be in union with you, this is also a moment that you're saying, under no circumstances can I allow this, because this is a masculine that just came into understanding of the self. They can't effectively, they almost like it would be an impossibility point to see a masculine of a feminine trying to put up this like illusory wall to themselves every day to be able to facilitate partnership. So I told you the healing immediately comes back. Continuing. And energetically, the moment that you energetically say, I love you, but I need to let you go, that moment of having that moment of saying, I'm doing this out of love, not from a place of hatred or anger, is the moment that you step into alignment with energy that is similarly moving in that same pathway. Continuing to get clarification between our Two of Cups and our Ace of Swords, may I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Sun. This is not fun. This is not fun. I know it's not fun. It's not happy to have that moment. It stinks. It's the worst. It feels energetically sad, right? We're seeing that for a lot of the energy right now because, again, having that observation point, doing what in a way you feel is the right thing, even at the moment right now of, again, we see that for some of this energy that's in separation at this point, it's not the fact that you don't see a pathway between you and another person in this modality. Your foresight is coming clear enough that you see what it would look like. You see the shape that it would take. And that's why we see that there's so much this energy right now that's going into this like energetic release and saying, my love for you is such that I don't want that for us. I don't want to see us move into something that doesn't feel like it's serving our highest selves or our highest space. That's why we see now if there's a feminine energy that's receiving towards them a masculine that's almost subjecting the feminine to their emotionality instead of being able to articulate on their emotionality. This is almost the feminine energy saying, my aspiration and hope is that one day we can come into alignment because you'll have found yourself on the same path as me. You'll recognize what you need to give forth in order to be able to have an equal, balanced partnership. Whereas for, again, masculine energy, if there's something that you're moving into a space of release of a feminine, this is you effectively amplifying to the feminine and saying, my love for you is not the question here. I can't live in a world where I see you struggling to accept the reality of me at every moment, because that's me watching me pull you off of your own path. That point of, again, doing what one feels is an act of love, even though it feels like it's hard at the moment, is the amplification of a lot of this love that's bringing in new aligned energetic unions. These energies are like going to bump into each other. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, that restoration point. The energy healing is the energy that can look back and say, I understand now. This could even be energy that's saying to another energy, I understand why you had to let me go. I understand why the situations in the past were not conducive for us to be together. The accomplishment has been seen here. And it's not just coming through words, but it's coming through actions. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This ability of feeling the easement point, potentially even energetically being surprised right now and finding an energy that feels so fluid, it feels so adaptable, it feels so easy, because even at a moment that you're not moving in the same modality, where one is pulling back and the other one's rushing forward, not letting your fears or anxieties pull you into separation, but almost communicating on them instead. Again, not subjecting each other to your emotions, but articulating on them, communicating them, is creating this breakthrough moment. But even as you have that breakthrough, it feels almost like suddenly you fall into double path work. Because the moment that you have that breakthrough, you're suddenly reminded and you build a deeper understanding on why things weren't moving in that capacity or in that degree in the past. It's like now, Like if you're having that breakthrough and you're like, if I'm so happy, why am I feeling so sad? This is why, because that sense of understanding is almost going down the line and helping you inform on what you need to heal going forward. Masculine and feminine coming into divine, that are in the heart of the divine union right now. This observational point in recognizing and experiencing and identifying that feeling of what you can change. This is why we see this is energetically difficult at this time, because this observation point, as it were, is almost amplifying right now what feels like you're effectively being able, you're like having that hard work of effectively having a challenging conversation to effectively allow for some point of breakthrough, allowing for some point of karmic clearing, if you will. So we see even now, energetically, this ability of identifying, of doing that hard work, almost saying to someone, I'm going to say the hard part first because I care about you, is almost coming through with a lot of that path work that a lot of the energy in the divine union is having to do right now, because that's that moment that it feels like that energetic alignment in relationality of saying like what is not the easy thing, but what is like what you know you need to express in order to facilitate productivity going forward. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Pentacles and our Ace of Cups in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Page of Pentacles. Masculine and feminine energy that are in the divine union frequency. What do we see that's effectively happening right now? We are seeing energetically that there's a lot of this path work that's potentially opening up right now in relationality to the masculine, coming into a deeper and deeper sense of security and stability in relationality to what they feel is in alignment. Like that is that moment. And we even see now that this is that bit of like, I have to say, the masculine and the feminine energy right now, having a little bit of that like disparity in terms of they are bringing forth to each other things that are difficult to support each other as they facilitate new pathways of healing. Masculine and feminine right now trying to do this energetically for one another, bringing these things forward to be able to help someone effectively move into what feels like it would be in better alignment for themselves. And that is that gift. Again, the divine union frequency, constantly putting forward, not trying to take, trying to give forth, because this is that moment. Even at a moment of having something that feels like it's difficult, this is that energetic equivalent of saying to someone, I'm pushing this forward to tell you not to create a space or place of energetic exhaustion, but to help you come into better alignment with what I know and aspire and recognize that you desire to be. This is that, again, holding the true mirror of one's own aspirations towards another to be able to facilitate that breakthrough moment in relationality to deeper healing. Masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency, this ability, this naturalness to this, the easement that you do this, it feels overwhelming. It feels overwhelming because it's that moment that like the ease of something coming through is creating a moment of energetic overwhelm, because it's a moment of realizing and recognizing all the things prior to this moment that weren't in alignment, that were creating you that space or place that you were feeling that exhaustion point. Because when you're not getting it back, when there's not that reciprocity vector here, then it just feels like you're exhausting yourself energetically, because this is that moment of effectively giving forth and getting back in kind that can sometimes feel energetically overwhelming. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. When I told you that there's now a lot of opportunities where there's these energies right now that are feeling the security and stability of making a hard choice, finding one another at a moment that you almost feel energetically or spiritually depleted. This is the energy of a lot of new potential partnerships that are starting in a moment of almost the energy saying, I don't know if I'm in a space or place to like start anything right now, because I'm just releasing something that was incredibly emotionally or energetically exhausting. But that ability of identifying that ability of recognizing that is effectively exactly why these energies are in perfect alignment to find one another, because they're literally coming through the same experience. There's going to be a lot of synchronicities potentially happening here in relationality to someone doing that energetic hard work. And again, This is that amplification of basically saying, and like that point of recognizing, saying like, I cared about someone a great deal, but I realized that I wasn't getting, like, there was an impossibility vector here that prevented something from being able to move forward. And that amplification point is almost like the gift that these energies are starting with right now that is facilitating these new energetic connections. While as the energy right now that's coming into restoration over these, it is someone being able to literally come forward and say, I am ready now. I recognize what I was not bringing forth in the past to allow for that breakthrough of energy. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Ace of Cups in its reversal in combination with our King of Cups in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with, we've got our Judgment card here. So masculine and feminine energy right now in the divine union frequency. What do we see that's effectively creating that moment right now that may feel very energetically difficult? This is that moment that is effectively requiring that level and degree of discernment. And I need to tell you even now, making sure that you're not in divine union frequency, not letting yourself get emotionally triggered right now is going to be extremely energetically important. Why are we seeing this right now? Look at the emotional energetic overwhelm that some of the masculine energy may be feeling at this time. This is the masculine energy needing some kind of energetic support right now. And almost in this moment of masculine, I have to say, a lot of this masculine energy right now in the divine union frequency may be trying to channel this into practical spaces and places at this time. But again, the ability of masculine to recognize that the divine union frequency is a space that you can energetically, that your emotions are important too, that your emotional benefit is also recognized and important. Some of this has to do right now with some of the masculine energy working through. I'm going to say this again, and I say this like in a point of positivity, making sure that you're able to articulate on your emotions right now, as opposed to feeling like you're just allowing yourself to come into a space or place of like feeling like that point of like, this could describe some of the masculine energy, feeling a little bit emotionally triggered today. So we want to see you, what's the energy right now in the divine union doing that feels like you're putting it into productive spaces and places. You're doing that transitional work, if you will, in processing how you're feeling in relationality to that overwhelm to be able to effectively refine your choices going forward. And so we see even now the ability of the masculine energy in the divine union to be able to do this is effectively kind of the gift of masculine observing that they're able to do, like they're working through this, is almost the masculine realizing and recognizing the shift that's occurred in masculine energy that's come into the divine union, because this could be a masculine energy being like, it could be a masculine energy being like, I can't believe I'm even thinking like this. I can't believe I'm even processing like this, because this is the masculine energy coming into a better understanding of how to navigate an emotional overwhelm that they may not necessarily have had before, right? That's that recognition point and value point here. The difference and the hurdle that we're effectively seeing right now, especially for some of the feminine energy, and that's why, again, if we're seeing a lot of this energy in terms of coming through to be a clear mirror, is effectively that act or that moment of discernment. I need to stress this, between having a difficult conversation with masculine and feeling some kind of trigger that's potentially hit, and the difference between a masculine energy asking you to change for the sake of their own benefit, versus the difference of a masculine energy that's effectively saying to you, I understand and recognize what you want for yourself, what you aspire for within yourself. I am trying to tell you or show you something about one's own self that I feel is best for you. And that's that moment that we see that there's a lot of the feminine energy processing through this right now, because this is some of that deep-rooted work that we're almost identifying here of feminine having that expression of masculine, amplifying that sense of of love from a space of saying like, I don't want you to change for me. I want you to change to become your best version of self. That is almost like immediately reaffirming to feminine how much of this healing that they're effectively doing, because it almost brings to mind all the spaces or places where masculine may not have moved that way. The energy coming into divine union right now, you're going through the same exact moment right now, especially if you're seeing a masculine energy that has a positive, productive way, a grounded and stable way, even to process what could be defined as a moment that they're feeling energetically overwhelmed. The feminine energy, seeing a masculine energy going through that process of feeling an emotional overwhelm, but instead of subjecting the feminine to the overwhelm, articulating on the fact that they're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, is like feminine going, yes, yes, that's possible, that's here. And it's calling to mind potentially for the feminine all the spaces and places in the past wherein they may not necessarily felt that that was the case. Masculine coming into divine union right now, again, feeling that energetic overwhelm of a feminine that makes things so easy, is almost like, again, that point of recognizing that your own ability not to let yourself run rampant against your own doubts and fears, but almost to be able to articulate it. This is why you're ready to come into divine union. This is that moment of almost giving yourself like a little bit of an energetic pat on the back, if you will, because it's that moment of recognizing that you're not leading from the place or space that makes you feel stable. You're almost allowing that energetic vulnerability to lead you forth, recognizing that the energy in the divine union frequency is the one that immediately comes forth to lend that balm of support or lend that point of like healing in the space or place of requiring or asking for it. It's like, how can one receive if one doesn't ask? That's almost like what we're seeing that's allowing for a lot of this breakthrough energy, for the energy coming into the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This moment, this identification point in relationality to what you feel like is in your power to change versus what is in your power to accept, it feels very energetically overwhelming to a certain extent, particularly and specifically for masculine energy right now. This observation point of, again, it's a masculine energy that may see a feminine energy that is too adaptable, that's too willing to change, that you feel like it's moving them off their own coursework to come into union with you. This is that moment that, like, again, it feels like this moment of personal maturation and achievement, because you're taking that choice, you're making that choice of doing what you know is best, not from like a lack of care, but from an emotional overwhelm, the care of another person over articulating and doing that thing that you know is energetically right is what is allowing that point of what feels a lot like that personal breakthrough point, even if it's very hard to energetically bear. That's that heart opening exercise that we're identifying right now. For feminine energy right now in separation, again, if this is a moment or modality wherein there's a masculine that's trying to come towards you, but it's not even a masculine energy that's like, it's masculine energy that's just amplifying the hurdle. This could even be the masculine energy, again, like subjecting the feminine to their emotions as opposed to being able to articulate and discuss them. This is the feminine energy that's feeling reaffirmed in their choice to move forward from this point, because this is the feminine energy that says, I want this person to energetically heal. My hope in moving away from them isn't due to lack of love or care. It's for them being able to find themselves, to recognize what they need to change and adjust on their own journey that may eventually lead to a better outcome in the future. Energy right now coming into a point of resolution and restoration, being able to see someone come into that point, to see someone going into an emotional overwhelm that may have effectively created a reactivity space in the past, but instead they're able to articulate on it. That's effectively reaffirming a lot of energy that's potentially coming back into union right now, because that's the moment of basically seeing and saying, this person has really changed. Whereas again, if this is masculine, seeing a feminine that is articulating their own ability to be in alignment with you, this isn't a feminine energy that's coming to a point that's saying like, you have to change these things about yourself. It's that moment of masculine feeling like complete acceptance, if you will. But again, articulating and amplifying the need to be able to be open and communicate more going forward. That is feeling like, again, that change or that adjustment point. Because it's like feeling the sense that you're now like working in a space of like the air is clear, if you will. Continuing to get clarification right now on these cards between our King of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Sun card in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Hangman in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy right now. We see a lot of this breakthrough energy that is coming to play right now. Masculine and feminine right now in the divine union frequency. A lot of this is what we're effectively seeing is requiring that moment of energetic breakthrough. We even see now, and this is why we're identifying that for some of the divine union frequency right now, this is amplifying how much the masculine has changed in the heart of the divine union frequency, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Because this is the masculine energy effectively moving forward in this way or in this space. And I have to say, even for the energy right now in the divine union frequency, making sure that you're not necessarily suppressing your emotions, but finding ways to like productively channel through them, if you will, is very vital and important during this time. Because what we're effectively seeing right now is masculine energy in the divine union frequency is doing a lot of work to like clear pathways. This is a lot of that energetic productivity, if you will. There's a lot of this like energetic curation that we are seeing here. This is masculine energy that's almost coming into an emotional expression that's almost like starting with like the premise of saying, please don't let me be misunderstood. Please don't let me be confused. Please don't misinterpret what I am bringing forth to you from a sake of understanding and recognizing that I'm not trying to like, this is the masculine almost trying to talk to the feminine and saying basically, I'm not trying to like overwhelm you with my own emotional needs. I'm trying to show you aspects of oneself that you can accommodate, adjust for, or change that would allow for productive paths going forward. Feminine, you may also be doing this right now on the part of towards a masculine. The most important about this path work right now has to do with the difference in recognizing what it feels like to have someone come into an accusatory space and telling you what they want you to change about yourself that feels like it serves their own needs and desires, versus someone articulating and identifying and saying, you know, I see this, I recognize this, I'm trying to bring this forth towards you to help you come into alignment with who I know you aspire and desire to be. So we see even now for a lot of the energy right now in the divine union, this is that amplification of what could be most articulated as difficult, tricky conversations. And that sense of trying to say, don't misunderstand me. Don't misunderstand one's own desire in doing so right now. It's requiring a lot of careful conversation, because it's all about recognizing that when you're doing that, as long as you're focused on the same horizon point, as long as you have the same goal in mind, that is that moment that can kind of amplify how you effectively get there. Because I told you, for masculine and feminine right now, something about like unpacking this is creating like that difficulty or that energetic hurdle. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, that difficulty or hurdle is a little bit easier because that's what you're effectively leaving behind. That energetic equivalent of what was difficult or more difficult here is being amplified right now in how easy something is. But recognizing the ease through which something is coming through right now, it almost feels like that bottom up thing, because the moment that you recognize and feel the easement that you're coming into divine union, it immediately reminds you and potentially addresses a situation or circumstance that wasn't the case. So for masculine, that observation point and the changes that you yourself may have engaged in that have led you to this point that you're able to come into divine union with, that confrontation of self, being able to navigate your own emotional territory in a way that feels like it is productive, it's almost immediately reminding you of any spaces or places in the past where you might not necessarily have been able to do so, right? This is like that moment of seeing everything that may have led to this point that may feel like it can be energetically heavy at times. While for feminine, experiencing this on the part of a masculine that's working so hard in terms of being able to do this type of work, almost a masculine that's trying to say like, oh, this is easy, and feminine being like, I know it's not, is almost immediately helping the feminine remember and recognize all the places in the past wherein they weren't necessarily experiencing masculine that was fully on that energetic healing journey. Right? And that's that difference that feminine may be experiencing even as they have a breakthrough moment of remembering all the places or spaces wherein masculine may have subjected feminine to their emotionality, as opposed to articulating on it, to building that easement point, right? This is when the healing begins, is when you start to experience the thing that is healed. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This observation point in terms of what feels like it is healing versus what needs to be released right now, this is that moment that we're energetically seeing to a certain extent. And it feels, I'm going to say it just feels very bittersweet to a certain extent. Because I told you, doing what you know is right versus what you desire right now is effectively allowing a lot of this breakthrough energy to occur. Because for the feminine, This is potentially seeing some masculine energy that's returning back to you right now, but feeling that like sadness in relationality, not necessarily seeing something that has changed. It may be feeling more of that amplification of what led to separation in the first place. But feminine energy, what is happening in that modality? It is reaffirming your own commitment to move forward from this time. At the time that you're seeing something that you're feeling to a certain extent is just energetically not in alignment at this moment. Masculine, the same. If you're doing that hard work right now of potentially energetically moving away from someone from an act of love, and that's that moment that is almost expressing your full love for someone, this is that moment of saying, like, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not making this choice because I don't care about you. I'm making this choice because I'm seeing that this is not necessarily in alignment, that this is creating too much of that dissimilarity, because this is the masculine energy that effectively, as we said, has just come into understanding of their true self. They're trying to operate in a space of no illusion with feminine. They can't watch a feminine trying to create a false sense of self in order to be in union with masculine. Masculine and feminine right now that are coming into, and these energies are both effectively in that modality right now, where they may be experiencing and encountering moments where they're coming into alignment. And it's coming again, almost on that point of someone saying, I don't know if I'm energetically ready right now to move forward into something, because I'm right on the heels of something that I feel like I'm trying to like energetically release. Masculine and feminine that are in separation right now, and this is that restoration moment. This is the observation effectively of the masculine in relationality to what can be adjusted going forward. So I mean that by way of identifying that this is either a masculine energy that's able to show through actions right now of ability to go through an emotional overwhelm moment, not subjecting the feminine to overwhelm, but almost articulating on it, that is almost reaffirming to some of the feminine energy that this is in fact on a pathway of healing, because there's something about seeing the way that the masculine is navigating their emotionality that is affirming to feminine that masculine is doing this work. Whereas for the other feminine energy, if masculine's healing from a feminine, like if this is a feminine energy that is accepting the masculine in their full honesty and their full truth, this is the masculine almost again affirming to the feminine. If that was a surprise point that may have led to separation, the affirmation of the masculine saying, I'm not going to surprise you like that again. We're just going to lead forth with honesty, openness, and clarity going forward. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Page of Pentacles in combination with our Judgment card. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Four of Swords, masculine and feminine energy right now in the divine union frequency. This is almost that moment that we're seeing right now that is really amplifying the need for catharsis and rest. And I need to stress this right now, because one of the things that we're effectively seeing right now that is allowing for this energy to feel like it's so supportive in the divine union frequency is recognizing and reaffirming one's own commitment in relationality to what feels like it is energetically productive here, and in relationality to what feels like it needs time to change. One of the things that we're seeing here that's really valuable and caring and this is actually really beautiful, is this recognition point that we're seeing energetically for the energy in the divine union that's almost bringing something forth to say to someone, I'm effectively showing something to you that I don't feel like you effectively see. But almost having that moment of observation, acting as a true mirror towards the other in a way of helping someone recognize and say the commitment and affirmation is helping someone on that journey of becoming their best version of self. This isn't that moment of, again, this is literally that energetic moment that we see here of giving someone that hard truth, telling someone something, showing someone something, and then immediately creating that energetic support to someone. That energy of saying, I'm giving this to you to show my capacity for caring. I'm giving this to you to show you that this is something that I'm providing you to try to help you come into a deeper sense of healing. Where effectively, what is happening right now in the divine union that's helping someone energetically receive that? It's the gift of saying that when we give someone a gift, what they choose to do with it is effectively theirs, right? That is what we mean right now in the modality of understanding and recognizing Even now, what's happening in the divine union is that gift of having these difficult discussions, but almost amplifying at the same time, that one is not bringing something forth because you need to see some kind of change in another person. That moment of almost saying to someone, I'm giving this to you because I feel like you need it. What you do with it, I'm here to support you as I offer it to you, and how you choose to move forward with it is entirely your choice. That is the gift of the divine union frequency, because we're seeing here that energetically, the ability to move in that environment of mutual support, being able to look at something as an expression of what you can give forth instead of what you can take, is where we see even now having these difficult conversations. Even now it feels like that amplification of the supportive element, even if it is a difficult conversation. Masculine and feminine having these conversations in the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency, this ability of going through what may have effectively led to separation points in the past, anxieties, doubts, fears rising up, but instead of them coming into a space of a closure, having that build a deeper sense of connection, being able to walk through that difficulty moment, being able to articulate on it instead of going silent. This is the affirmation right now that is effectively reinforcing a lot of energy coming into divine union right now, while also giving a lot of insight on what did not come into divine union. It's like the clarity that is reached at a moment of breakthrough that amplifies what you may not have been receiving at the time, that led to some endings around situations and cycles that did not come into full fruition. And that's heavy work. You can understand that when you're going through that moment and you're finally receiving something that gives you insight on why something didn't necessarily come into being the way that you hoped it would, that moment of clarity almost immediately needs a minute of recovery, because it's that moment of kind of identifying and recognizing something in a way that you haven't before. It's shaping one's own perception of the past in a different way. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This modality of reaffirming one's own commitment in relationality to what it is that you're trying to bring forth in divine union right now. For some of the energy right now, it's allowing for some breakthroughs. It's allowing some observation of past circumstances and situations that are coming forth in new ways, new tangible ways that are allowing for some point of reconsideration, specifically because you can see both tangibly and verbally that there has been some kind of foundational shift that has occurred energetically. While for the energy right now that is in separation, seeing something from the past coming back up in the same modality through which it left is reaffirming one's own commitment at this time in relationality to how you're choosing to move forward at this moment. And again, it's not the sense of effectively completely relinquishing something from the past, because we see that a lot of this is almost that expression of energetic love, saying one hopes that someone can come into a state or space of healing, but it's almost that that validation point in recognizing one's own inability to effectively wait on what could be an impossibly long metric to see if someone can come into that healing. Because this is almost that acceptance point that someone may that someone that you're moving away from may stay in that modality indefinitely, right? It's almost like that dormancy, and saying if they're not, I can't wait for them to energetically wake up, if you will, but I can hold faith that they will. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Judgment card. And for a lot of this energy, I will say that this is that moment that feels like the minute that you come into that point of acceptance, almost immediately feels like it requires a little bit of that energetic or spiritual recovery, because that's that moment that you say, I am recovering from that, instead of saying, I am waiting for that to heal. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, between our Judgment card in combination with our Hangman in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now for the Four of Cups. So for a lot of this energy right now that's coming, I want to say this is almost feeling a lot like that energetic second separation moment. We see that there's a lot of energy that may be going through what we could best describe as a second separation. So for the energy right now that's going through that second separation, seeing something that isn't showing the ability to come into restoration. This is the reaffirming of the commitment on the path going forward. And this is potentially going to feel like the true release process in relationality to some circumstances or situations, because this is that reaffirming that is now almost opening oneself up to assess and understand what the choices are moving forward from this point. Because we see even now that observation point, that ability to recognize that there's something here that is like offering itself back to you, but it is the repetition of a cycle. This is that moment that effectively your ability to see what that cycle is seeing like almost again, that moment of desiring something that is new, because you kind of recognize or see something. It's like you can almost see where something is going, were you to allow it back in. Right? And that's why we see here, it's almost that point of effectively having to take more of that stepping back from an energetic way to say like, I'm doing this or I'm stepping away from this with the hope that one day it can come back in a new way. They'll understand what they need to change. There'll be that ability to be able to facilitate some point of deeper healing. That is now allowing the energetic feeling of saying, I'm not necessarily, this is the energy here that's going from a point of feeling the affirmation is that they need to move forward. So for any of the energy that was potentially in that waiting modality, seeing that expression come back in the same modality is now reaffirming the commitment to actually move forward. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, seeing something return back to you and you're seeing and recognizing that there is some ability or facility that has changed, seeing someone in a different way, seeing that someone's in a different position energetically, spiritually, seeing someone that's doing that path work and is able to articulate on what has occurred between now and then that is allowing for that full facilitation of healing. This is almost that moment we see that almost feels like a lot of catching back up, if you will. Talking about what has happened between now and then that has reshaped you energetically, that is allowing for some of that breakthrough to occur. This is almost like moving more into that point of inquiry. You know, like where do we go from here? What occurred that's allowed for that shift, and where do we go from here? Masculine and feminine right now coming into the divine union frequency. The minute that you have something that feels like an energetic breakthrough in this capacity is the minute that you finally get to heal from anything that was not providing this in the past. It's like the minute that you step into that alignment, the minute you build that sense of understanding, the clarity on what didn't work becomes clear in the moment in the moment that you experience what does. Masculine and feminine energy that are in the divine union frequency, this level or degree of discernment that we see that is happening right now is why this feels like so much more difficult, if you will, because this is feeling much more transformational, because it doesn't have as immediately, it's like it's not as much, you're not necessarily energetically seeing the breakthrough moment that is allowing for some kind of fundamental shift in terms of like where you are. This is creating that path of discernment, if you will, in terms of looking at where you've been in the past to recognize and ascertain what has changed between the time that you've entered the divine union to where you find yourself now, to be able to understand and recognize what you can come into even better alignment with. What can you release? What can you begin to do? What can be let go? What can be picked back up? What is something that you may have needed in the past because like they were training wheels, versus feeling like you can now take something off because you don't need those trailing wheels. That moment right now of ascertaining those subtle shifts right now energetically that are occurring for a lot of the energy in the divine union, it's hard. It's requiring a lot of difficulty and nuance to build into a path of refinement. And that is why we see here the ability to amplify and almost come into what we want to say is like the fine-tuning energetically, but the fine-tuning that is helping someone come into their best version of self, or the best version of the relationship that you aspire and hope to achieve while in divine union, is being amplified here by being able to be in that expression of what one aspires to going forward and where you find oneself presently. Final card for today's spread between our Four of Swords in combination with our Four of Cups. Look at this. What needs to be dormant versus what can we move forward on? Double fours right now. One card to clarify, please. Balance. We love this. We absolutely love this. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. This is why we see right now there's this moment that is requiring, and even now, this is going to feel like a little bit of slowness entering some circumstances or situations, because again, what are we effectively seeing for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency right now? That ability to know one another so much, to help one another see things about yourself that you yourself might not necessarily immediately recognize or identify, is allowing for both a space of being able to sit, giving someone the space they need to absorb and to take that as they will, to be able to facilitate new pathways going forward. So we see even energetically right now, this is that moment that may feel like the shape of like the heaviness, the acceptance point in relationality to what is potentially brought forth at this time, versus what is allowing some apparent ability to see one's own patterns so that you can come into a space or state of breakthrough, right? We can't change something unless we observe something. So even now we see that for the energy right now in the divine union, the ability to help one recognize one's own patterns is one that is being observed to help almost say to oneself and to the energy that you're in divine union with, is that something that is necessary? Is that something that is functional? Is that something that is productive? Does that bring balance? Or is that a place or space that we can look at and see if there's any adjustments or modifications that can be reached to allow for better alignment going forward? Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this ability to recognize this, and again, that sense of like peace, of easement, how easy something is, potentially even easy in relationality to like bringing something new forth. This is almost creating that sense of finding alignment, finding yourself. The energy coming into the divine union frequency is almost already in the heart of it, as it were. And this is that modality that is being expressed right now in, like, again, assessing the past through new eyes because of the amount of balance that you're finding yourself in the present. It can feel a little bit heavy, even though it feels like a breakthrough, because it's like the breakthrough's happening in the present, but it's also happening in the past. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This is that effective identification point in relationality to, again, really affirming and feeling like something potentially came back up from the past that you're immediately allowing to go back dormant again, because you're feeling, again, it's like not the fact that someone has come back from the past, but it's much in the same modality through which they may have effectively caused the separation in the first point. That is that moment of feeling the reaffirmation that's not necessarily something that is ready, or there's not a relationship there that is coming into alignment. The opportunity's there, but it's almost the assessment of saying it would be more of the same. There's almost a lot of energy right now in separation being like, I just got perfect clarity that whatever's coming back from there is more of the same of what may have caused the separation, wherein we see that healing is the balance of one choosing to move forward even into the unknown at this point, saying, I don't want to repeat an unhealthy pattern. I would rather push forward to see what is beyond that moment. That is what is almost like reaffirming a lot of that energy that's moving forward right now in separation, with the journey of effectively manifesting the balance in the future. Masculine and feminine energy effectively feeling this right now. Whereas again, for the energy right now that is in separation, and this is the energy from the past returning, the energy showing in some very articulate way, in some very tangible way, that something has profoundly changed, either within them or around them, that is going to facilitate this breakthrough energy. This is what is creating some of the balance at this time, because it's not the fact that something isn't energetically coming back from the past. It is being able to see very clearly that there is some functional, foundational change in relationality to what is being brought forth to help bring further balance as you go forward from this point, a break in that pattern, if you will. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now is, we have here our 8 of Cups in its reversal. The difficulty or hurdle about this right now has a lot to do with the past. You know, what we're seeing right now across all of the frequencies is that observation point in what feels comfortable, in what feels familiar. And one of the things that we're seeing that's happening right now across all the frequencies is not the sense or the identification of something that feels comfortable or familiar. The better question that's almost rising to the surface right now is it functional? Is it productive? So why is this energy so heavy right now in the divine union frequency? Because I told you that observation point in knowing someone so well that you can see their own patterns and helping someone recognize their own patterns, not to bring them forth to have them change them, but almost to come from that point of inquiry and saying, is this functional? Is this productive? Does this serve you, or is this hindering you? Is, again, potentially creating a little bit more of that difficulty metric in terms of having these conversations. The energy right now that's coming into the divine union, breaking through into the divine union, is giving you clarity on anything energetically that wasn't allowing for that breakthrough. That's like that minute you're like, oh, it's like that understanding of the easement. When you receive that easement, when you see how easy it can be, it suddenly creates a lot of clarity on all the spaces and places that you could not find that easement. Whereas for masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, I told you we're seeing that there's a lot of energy right now. It's creating a separation point, not from a state of desire. A lot of energy here is doing a lot of work to let go of something, and it's not something that they're eager to let go of. But again, recognizing and focusing on what feels like it is balanced versus what you feel like you have an energetic, spiritual, emotional connection to. That is that moment that almost feels like the expression of tough love, because it's almost that moment of saying, like, I care about you, but I need to do the hard thing to show you that I know what is best for us at this moment, with the hope, not that it creates an ending, but that hopefully that'll create some new beginning longer down the line. And we see even now that a lot of that energy that's almost moving forward and saying, I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I have to leave some like avenue open, and maintaining hope there is almost like, again, recognizing that they're leaving themselves open to new connections at a moment that they may be feeling extremely resistant to them. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it with me. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me today and sharing with me in these messages. And we will do this again tomorrow.